साईं महाराज श्री गुरुदेव की जय। नितिल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अशुतर शतस्मर भक्ति वेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय। नितिल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अशुतर शतस्मर भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। नितिल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अशुतर शतस्मर भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय। नितिल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अशुतर शतस्मर भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय। नितिल प्रविष्ट महाभागवत श्री गोक्षर बाबाजी महाराज की जय। नितिल प्रविष्ट श्री सच्चिद आनंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। नितिल प्रविष्ट वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास बाबाजी महाराज की जय। श्री रूपनु गौरिया गुरु वर्ग की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास रघुनाथ शारद गोसाई प्रभु की जय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गौर पार्षद वृंद की जय। नाम चय रस ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल ब्रज मंडल मथुर वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट विरत गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री मुन देवी गंग देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योग माय की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नितिल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अष्टतर शत शिशिमार भक्ति कुमुद शांत गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। तदीय शुभ आविर्भाव तिथि की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्रीनिताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि वो। धन्यवाद प्रणाम्स माधवी दीदी, रूप मंजरी दीदी, Gargaraji ji, Kishore Prabhu, and yeah, all glories to Srila Bhakti Kumud Santa Goswami Maharaj. Hari Bol. All right, so do Mangala chant. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad Bhakti Vedanta Nayiniti Namine. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Itadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Pravrajantamanupetamapeta Krityam Dvaipayano Virahakatara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Bhinedustang Sarvabhuta Hridaya Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Shrinvatang Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridantasto Yabhadrani Vidhunoti Suhritsatam Nashta Prayesh Pavadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Tavai Vasmi Najivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayamam Charanantikam Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Kshiptashtakama Kamadhe Kripa Mahitvam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanai Ravindam Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. Dandavat pranams Prajumna Prabhu, Mantramurti Mataji, Indira Mataji, and Raseshwari Mataji. Hari Bol, Dandavat pranams. Can you hear the birds in the background? Prajumna Prabhu? Okay, cool. All right, so let's see. Okay, I thought I'd read from this instead. Oops, sorry, I forgot to. Come on. Yeah, this might be a bit shorter. God as the ideal human being. The grandson of Khatvanga was Raghu, whose grandson was King Dasharath. Dasharath became father of the Supreme Lord and his expansions, Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, and Shatrughna. Lord Ramachandra helped sage Vishwamitra in conducting his sacrifice by killing the demons who were disturbing him. To win the hand of Mother Sita in marriage, he lifted, bent, strung, and ultimately broke the heavy bow of Lord Shiva, which had needed 300 men to be carried. Lord Ramachandra was Maryada Purushottam, or the man without a second in spotless conduct. To keep the word of his father to his stepmother intact, Ram relinquished the royal throne and went on exile to the forest, accompanied by Lakshman and Sita. The demoness Shurpanaka approached Ram with lust, who, in order to purify her, cut off her nose and killed her 14,000 demoniac friends. Instigated by such manhandling of his sister and himself being captivated by lust for Sita, the demon king Ravan made his maternal uncle Maricha assume the form of a golden deer and allure Sita. While Ram went to capture the deer to please Sita Devi, wicked Ravan kidnapped her, coming in the disguise of a saint. Lord Ram lamented sorely in separation from Sita. Searching for her, Rama and Lakshman met the vulture Jatayu, who had been lethally injured by Ravan while trying to rescue Mother Sita. They killed the demon Kabanda, who was then liberated to his original Gandharva form, and directed Ram to the monkey commander Sugriva. Ram established a friendship with Sugriva and killed his exploitive brother Vali. Hanuman, the eternal servant of Lord Ram, found Sita Devi in Lanka and set fire to Lanka. Organizing an army of monkeys, Ram went to the shore of the ocean and fasted for 3 days awaiting the ocean god's help. But the ocean god didn't respond. As Ram became angry, the ocean boiled, and every oceanic creature trembled with fear. The ocean god then hastily came before Ram with all paraphernalia of worship and fell at his feet. He acknowledged how he had completely failed to recognize the Lord and his identity as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The ocean god said, "O Lord, my waters will present no impediment to you, but please construct a bridge of floating stones over it so that your glories can be sung for all time to come." Ram made the bridge with the help of the monkeys, crossed the ocean, and attacked Ravan's capital, Lanka. A fierce battle took place between the army of demons led by A fierce battle took place between the army of demons led by Ravan and the army of monkeys led by Ram. Lord Ramachandra personally killed Ravan and enthroned Ravan's noble brother Vibhishan as the king of Lanka. The Lord then reached his capital Ayodhya with Sita Devi in a flower airplane. Bharat received him with love and reverence. Sage Vashishta enthroned Lord Ramachandra as the king. Lord Ram performed various sacrifices and gave his entire kingdom in charity to the Brahmins. The Brahmins were fully satisfied with the enlightenment given by him from within their hearts, and thus returned to the kingdom of Ram. Once, Ram wandered within his capital in disguise to understand what impression the citizens had of him. By chance, he heard a man speaking suspiciously of the character of Sita Devi while rebuking his unchaste wife and referring to the Lord as a hen-pecked husband. Ram feared such rumors against the kingship, which would eventually be detrimental to the kingdom's stability. With immense pain, he banished pregnant Sita Devi to the shelter of Valmiki Muni, where she gave birth to 2 twin sons named Lava and Kush. Sita Devi placed her 2 sons in the care of Valmiki and entered into the earth. Lord Ram, exhibiting transcendental grief, started an uninterrupted Agnihotra Yagya for 13,000 years and departed to his eternal abode upon its completion. All right, so okay, cool. You found it. That's great. So it's Garga Samhita 510. Cool. Thanks for finding that, Kishore Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam Sabitri Didi. All right, where are we? So we read yesterday Lord Ram's reciprocation with the Brahmins. Brahmins are pleased with Lord Ram's affection. Then gossip. Then Ram's sons was Lava and Kush. Lakshman's sons were Angara and Chitraketu. Bharat's sons were Taksha and Pushkala. Shatrughna's sons were Subahu and Shrutasena. Then Bharat went to conquer all directions. He killed millions of Gandharvas who were pretenders and offered their wealth to Lord Ram. Shatrughna killed Lavanasura, the son of demon Madhu, and established Mathura city in Madhuban. And so now we're reading from this part. The return of Sita and Rāma into Vaikuṇṭha and their glories. Okay. What verse is that? 1 second. Just checking here. Verse 15 to 25. Okay. There. Thus established the great force known as Madhuban in the town of Mathura. Munao nikshipya tanayo sita bharta vivasita dhyayanti ramacharano divaram praviveshaha. Being forsaken by her husband, Sita Devi entrusted her 2 sons to the care of Valmiki Muni. Then, meditating upon the lotus feet of Lord Ramachandra, she entered into the earth. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It was impossible for Sita Devi to live in separation from Lord Ramachandra. Therefore, after entrusting her 2 sons to the care of Valmiki Muni, she entered into the earth. Tachruta Bhagavan Ramo Rundhan Api Dhiya Shucha Smarangshtasya Gunangstangstan Nashaknor Rudham Ishvara. After hearing the news of Mother Sita's entering the earth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead was certainly aggrieved. Although he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, upon remembering the exalted qualities of Mother Sita, he could not check his grief in transcendental love. Purport. Ramachandra's grief at the news of Sita Devi's entering the earth is not to be considered material. In the spiritual world also there are feelings of separation, but such feelings are considered to be spiritual bliss. Grief and separation exists even in the absolute, but such feelings of separation in the spiritual world are transcendentally blissful. Such feelings are a sign of tasya prem vashyata swabhav, being under the influence of Hladini Shakti and being controlled by love. In the material world, such feelings of separation are only a perverted reflection. Stripung prasanga etadrik sarvatra trasamahavaha apishvaranam kim uta gramyasya grihachetasa. The attraction between man and woman, or male and female, always exists everywhere, making everyone always fearful. Such feelings are present even among the controllers like Brahma and Lord Shiva, and is the cause of fear for them, what to speak of others who are attached to household life in this material world. Purport. As explained above, when the feelings of love and transcendental bliss from the spiritual world are pervertedly reflected in this material world, they are certainly the cause of bondage. As long as men feel attracted to women in this material world, and women feel attracted to men, the bondage of repeated birth and death will continue. But in the spiritual world, where there is no fear of birth and death, such feelings of separation are the cause of transcendental bliss. In the absolute reality, there are varieties of feeling, but all of them are of the same quality of transcendental bliss. Tata urdvam brahmacharyam dharyan ajuhot prabhu trayodashabda sahasram agnihotram akhanditam. After Mother Sita entered the earth, Lord Ramachandra observed complete celibacy and performed an uninterrupted Agnihotra Yagya for 13,000 years. Smaratam hridivinyasya vedham danda kakantakai swapara pallavam rama atma jyotir agat tata. After completing the sacrifice, Lord Ramachandra, whose lotus feet were sometimes pierced by thorns when he lived in Dandakaranya, placed those lotus feet in the hearts of those who always think of him. Then he entered his own abode, the Vaikuṇṭha planet beyond the Brahmajyoti. Purport. The devotees to the Lord are always a subject matter for meditation for devotees. Sometimes when Lord Ramachandra wandered in the forest of Dandakaranya, thorns pricked his lotus feet. The devotees, upon thinking of this, would faint. The Lord does not feel pain or pleasure from any interaction or reaction of this material world, but the devotees cannot tolerate even the pricking of the Lord's lotus feet by a thorn. This was the attitude of the gopis when they thought of Krishna wandering in the forest with pebbles and grains of sand pricking his lotus feet. This tribulation in the heart of a devotee cannot be understood by karmis, jnanis, or yogis. The devotees who could not tolerate even thinking of the Lord's lotus feet being pricked by a thorn were again put into tribulation by thinking of the Lord's disappearance. For the Lord had to return to his own abode after finishing his pastimes in this material world. The word Atma Jyoti is significant. The Brahma Jyoti, which is greatly appreciated by jnanis, or monistic philosophers who desire to enter it for liberation, is nothing but the rays of the Lord's body. Yasya prabha prabhavato jagarandakoti kotishvashesha vasudhadi vibhuti bhinnam tad brahma nishkalamanantar mashesha bhutam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is endowed with great power. The glowing effulgence of his transcendental form is the impersonal Brahman, which is absolute, complete, and unlimited, and which displays the varieties of countless planets with their different opulences and millions of universes. It's Brahma Samhita 540. The Brahma Jyoti is the beginning of the spiritual world, and beyond the Brahma Jyoti are the Vaikuṇṭha planets. In other words, the Brahma Jyoti stays outside the Vaikuṇṭha planets just as the sunshine stays outside the sun. To enter the sun planet, one must go through the sunshine. Similarly, when the Lord or his devotees enter the Vaikuṇṭha planets, they go through the Brahma Jyoti. The jnanis, or monistic philosophers, because of their impersonal conception of the Lord, cannot enter the Vaikuṇṭha planets, but they also cannot stay eternally in the Brahma Jyoti. Thus, after some time, they fall again to the world. Aruya kritrena parampadam tata patantado nadrita yushmarangraya. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 10.2.32. The Vaikuṇṭha planets are covered by the Brahma Jyoti, and therefore one cannot properly understand what those Vaikuṇṭha planets are unless one is a pure devotee. Nedam yasho ragupate yachnayata lila tanoradhika samya vimukta dhamna raksho vado jaladi bandhanamastra pugai king tasya shatruhanane kapaya sahaya. Lord Ramachandra's reputation for having killed Ravan with showers of arrows at the request of the demigods, and for having built a bridge over the ocean, does not constitute the factual glory of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Ramachandra, whose spiritual body is always engaged in various pastimes. Lord Ramachandra has no equal or superior, and therefore he had no need to take help from the monkeys to gain victory over Ravan. Purport. As stated in the Vedas, Shvetashvatar Upanishad 6.8, sorry. Natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate, natat shamascha bhyadikash cha drishyate, parasya shaktir vividhaiva shruyate, Sabhavaki Jnana Bala Kriyacha. The Supreme Lord has nothing to do, and no one is found to be equal to or greater than him, for everything is done naturally and systematically by his multifarious energies. The Lord has nothing to do. Natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate. Whatever he does is his pastime. The Lord has no duty to perform to oblige anyone. Nonetheless, he appears to act to protect his devotees or kill his enemies. Of course, no one can be the Lord's enemy, since who could be more powerful than the Lord? There is actually no question of anyone's being his enemy, but when the Lord wants to take pleasure in pastimes, he comes down to this material world and acts like a human being, thus showing his wonderful, glorious activities to please the devotees. His devotees always want to see the Lord victorious in varied activities, and therefore, to please himself and them, the Lord sometimes agrees to act as a human being and perform wonderful, uncommon pastimes for the satisfaction of the devotees. Yasyamalam nripasadasu yashodhunai gayantaga gnama rishayo digibhendra patam tamna kapala vasupala kirita jushta padam bhujam ragupatim sharanam papadde. Lord Ramachandra's spotless name and fame, which vanquish all sinful reactions, celebrated in all directions, like the ornamental cloth of the victorious elephant that conquers all directions. Great saintly persons like Markandeya Rishi still glorify his characteristics in the assemblies of great emperors like Maharaj Yudhishthir. Similarly, all the saintly kings and all the demigods, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, worship the Lord by bowing down with their helmets. Let me offer my obeisances unto his lotus feet. Sayai sprishto bidrishto va samvishto nugato piva kosalas tevyayu stanam yatra gachanti yogina. Lord Ramachandra returned to his abode, to which bhakti yogis are promoted. This is the place to which all inhabitants of Ayodhya went after they served the Lord in his manifest pastimes by offering him obeisances, touching his lotus feet, fully observing him as a father-like king, sitting or lying down with him like equals, or even just accompanying him. Purport. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 4:9, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattvata takta deham punar janma naiti mam eti sorjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Here this is confirmed. All the inhabitants of Ayodhya who saw Lord Ramachandra as citizens served him as servants, sat and talked with him as friends, or were somehow or other present during his reign. So all the inhabitants who saw Ramachandra's citizens served him as servants, talked to them as friends, or were somehow or other present during his reign, they all went back home, back to Godhead. After giving up the body, the devotee who becomes perfect in devotional service enters that particular universe where Lord Ramachandra or Lord Krishna is engaged in his pastimes. Then, after being trained to serve the Lord in various capacities in that Prakat Leela, the devotee is finally promoted to Sanatan Dham, the supreme abode in the spiritual world. This Sanatan Dham is also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, Parastasmat tu bhavonyo vyakto vyaktat sanatana. One who incidental pastimes of the Lord is called a Nitya Lila Pravishta. To understand clearly why Lord Ramachandra returned, it is mentioned herewith that the Lord went to that particular place where the bhakti yogis go. Then personalists misunderstand the statements of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam to mean that the Lord entered his own effulgence and therefore became impersonal. But the Lord is a person, and his devotees are persons. Indeed, the living entities, like the Lord, were persons in the past, they are persons in the present, and they will continue to be persons even after giving up the body. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Purusho Ramacharitam Shavanar Upadharayan Andrishangsa Paro Rajan Karma Bandhar Vimuchyate. Just checking the comments really quick. Okay. Oh my God, Radha Krishnanji, that Ramananda Sagar series is so good. My Gurudev watched the whole thing. Yeah, it's really the most. Okay. Purusho Ramacharitam Shavanarupadharayan Anrishangsa Nrishangsya paro rajan karma bandhar vimuchyate. O King Parikshit, anyone who orally receives the narrations concerning the characteristics of Lord Ramachandra's pastimes will ultimately be freed from the disease of envy and thus be liberated from the bondage of fruitive activities. Purport. Here in the material world, everyone is envious of someone else. Even in religious life, it is sometimes found that one devotee has advanced in spiritual activities. If one devotee has advanced in spiritual activities, other devotees are envious of him. Such envious devotees are not completely freed from the bondage of birth and death. As long as one is not completely free from the cause of birth and death, one cannot enter Sanatan Dharma. They cannot enter the Sanatan Dham, or the eternal pastimes of the Lord. One becomes envious because of being influenced by the designations of the body. But the liberated devotee has nothing to do with the body, and therefore he is completely on the transcendental platform. A devotee is never envious of anyone, even his enemy. Because the devotee knows that the Lord is his supreme protector, he thinks, what harm can the so-called enemy do? Thus, a devotee is confident about his protection. The Lord says, Ye yata mang prapadyante tang sadaiva bhajamyaham. According to the proportion of one's surrender unto me, I respond accordingly. A devotee must therefore be completely free from envy, especially of other devotees. To envy other devotees is a great offense, a Vaishnav aparad. A devotee who constantly engages in hearing and chanting, Shravan Kirtan, is certainly freed from the disease of envy, and thus he becomes eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. Shirajavacha Katam sa Bhagavan Ramo Bhratrin va Swayamatmana Tasmin va ten vartanta Prajaporascha Ishvare. Maharaj Parikshit inquired from Shukadev Goswami, how did the Lord conduct himself, and how did he behave in relationship with his brothers, who were expansions of his own self? And how did his brothers and the inhabitants of Ayodhya treat him? Shri Badarayanir Uvacha Atadisha Digvijaye Bratring Shri Bhuvaneshwara Atmanam Darshayan Swanam Purim Aikshata Sanugaha. Shukadev Goswami replied, after accepting the throne of the government by the fervent request of his younger brother Bharat, Lord Ramachandra ordered his younger brothers to go out and conquer the entire world, while he personally remained in the capital to give audience to all the citizens and residents of the palace, and supervise the governmental affairs with his other assistants. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead does not allow any of his devotees or assistants to be engaged in sense gratification. The younger brothers of Lord Ramachandra were at home enjoying the personal presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the Lord ordered them to go out and achieve victory all over the world. It was the custom, and this custom in some places is still current, that all other kings would have to accept the supremacy of the emperor. If the king of a small state did not accept the emperor's supremacy, there would be a fight, and the king of the small state would be obliged to accept the emperor as the supreme. Otherwise, it would not be possible for the emperor to rule the country. Lord Ramachandra showed his favor to his brothers by ordering them to go out. Many of the Lord's devotees residing in Vrindavan have taken the vow not to leave Vrindavan to preach Krishna consciousness. But the Lord says that Krishna consciousness should be spread all over the world, in every village and every town. This is the open order of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prithivite ashejata nagaradigram sarvatra prachar hoibe mor nam. A pure devotee must execute the order of the Lord and must not gratify his senses by remaining stagnant in one place, falsely proud, thinking that because he does not leave Vrindavan but chants in a solitary place, he has become a great devotee. A devotee must carry out the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Jare dekho tare koho Krishna upadesh. Every devotee, therefore, should spread Krishna consciousness by preaching, asking whomever he meets to accept the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord says, Sarva dharmam parityaja mam ekam sharanam braja. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. This is the order of the Lord, who speaks as a Supreme Emperor. Everyone should be induced to accept this order. This is victory, Digvijay. And it is the duty of the soldier, the devotee, to impress upon everyone this philosophy of life. Of course, the Kanishta Adhikaris do not preach, but the Lord shows mercy to them also, as he did by staying personally in Ayodhya to give audience to the people in general. One should not mistakenly think that the Lord asked his younger brothers to leave Ayodhya because he especially favored the citizens. The Lord is merciful to everyone, and he knows how to show his favor to each individual person according to his capacity. One who abides by the order of the Lord is a pure devotee. Asikta margam gandodhai karinam adashikarai swaminam praptam alokya matam vasutaram iva. During the reign of Lord Ramachandra, the streets of the capital Ayodhya were sprinkled with perfumed water and drops of perfumed liquor. Perfumed liquor, interesting. Thrown out by elephants from their trunks. Those must have been some pretty drunk elephants. When the citizens saw the Lord personally supervising the affairs of the city in such opulence, they appreciated this opulence very much. Just curious what perfumed liquor is. Mada Shikarai. Shikara also honey? I don't know. No, Shikara means, I think, asikta. No. I don't know. Whatever. Okay, sorry guys. Purport. We have simply heard about the opulence of Ram Raja during the reign of Lord Ramachandra. Now, here's one example of the opulence of the Lord's kingdom. The streets of Ayodhya were not only cleaned, but also sprinkled with perfumed water and drops of perfumed liquor, which were distributed by elephants through their trunks. There is no need of sprinkling machines, for the elephants have a natural ability to suck water through its trunk and again throw it out in a shower. We can understand the opulence of the city from this one example. It was actually sprinkled with perfumed water. Moreover, the citizens had the opportunity to see the Lord personally supervising the affairs of the state. He was not a sleeping monarch, as we can understand from his activities in sending his brothers to see to affairs outside the capital and punish everyone who did not obey the emperor's orders. This is called Digvijay. The citizens were all given facilities for peaceful life, and they were also qualified with appropriate attributes according to Varnashram. As we have seen from the previous chapter, Varnashram Gunanvita. The citizens were trained according to the Varnashram system. A class of men were Brahmins, a class of men were Kshatriyas, a class were Vaishyas, and a class were Shudras. Without this scientific division, there can be no question of good citizenship. The king, being magnanimous and perfect in his duty, performed many sacrifices and treated the citizens as his sons, and the citizens, being trained in the Varnashram system, were obedient and perfectly ordered. The entire monarchy was so opulent and peaceful that the government was even able to sprinkle the streets with perfumed water, what to speak of other management. Since the city was sprinkled with perfumed water, we can simply imagine how opulent it was in other respects. Why should the citizens not have felt happy during the reign of Lord Ramachandra? Prasada Gopura Sabha Chaitadeva Grihadishu Vinyastahema Kalashai Patakabhishchamanditam. How come I only wrote 25 verses here? Did I mess something up? Guess not. I'm just checking. I didn't accidentally. Yeah, it looks good. Okay. Saragopura Sabha Chaitadeva Grihadishu Vinyastahema Kalashai Patakabhishchamanditam. The palaces, the palace gates, the assembly houses, the platforms for meeting places, the temples, and all such places were decorated with golden water pots and bedecked with various types of flags. Bhogai savritnai rambhabhi patikabhi suvasasam adarshar angshukai sragbhi krita kautukatoranam. Wherever Lord Ramachandra visited, auspicious welcome gates were constructed with banana trees and betel nut trees, full of flowers and fruits. The gates were decorated with various flags made of colorful cloth and with tapestries, mirrors, and garlands. Tam upeyustata tatra tatra pora arhanapanaya ashiso yuyujurdeva pahimam praktvayodritam. Wherever Lord Ramachandra visited, the people approached him with paraphernalia of worship and the Lord's blessings. "O Lord," they said, "as you rescued the earth from the bottom of the sea in your incarnation as a boar, may you now maintain it. Thus we beg your blessings." Tata praja viksha patragatam didrikshayo srishta grihasriyo nara, arohya harmanyaravindalechanam atripta netra kusamar avakiram. Thereafter, not having seen the Lord for a long time, the citizens, both men and women, being very eager to see him, left their homes and got up on the roofs of the palaces. Being incompletely satisfied with seeing the face of the lotus-eyed Lord Ramachandra, they showered flowers upon him. Ata pravishta swagriham jushtam swai purvarajabhi ananta kilakoshadhyam anarghyo ruparichadam vidrumo dumbara dvarar vaidurya stambak panktivi stalar marakatai swachar brajat spatika bhittivi Chitrasragbhi patikabhir vasomani ganangshukai muktapalaischarulasai kantakamo papattibhi dhupadipa surabhibhir manditam pushpamandala mandanai stripumbi surasankashar jushtam bhushana bhushanai. Thereafter, Lord Ramachandra entered the palace of his forefathers. Within the palace were various treasures and valuable wardrobes. The sitting places on the two sides of the entrance door were made of coral. The yards were surrounded by pillars of Vaidurya mani. The floor was made of highly polished Marakata mani, and the foundation was made of marble. One second. The entire palace was decorated with flags and garlands and bedecked with valuable stones, shining with a celestial effulgence. The palace was fully decorated with pearls and surrounded by lamps and incense. The men and women within the palace all resembled demigods and were decorated with various ornaments, which seemed beautiful because of being placed on their bodies. Tasmin sa Bhagavan Rama snigdharaya priyayeshtaya Remesvaramadhiranam Rishabhasitaya Kila. Lord Ramachandra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, chief of the best learned scholars, resided in that palace with his pleasure potency, Mother Sita, and enjoyed complete peace. Babhuje chayata kalam kaman dharmam apidayan Varshapugan Pavundrinan Abhidyatangri Pallava. Without transgressing the religious principles, Lord Ramachandra, whose lotus feet are worshipped by devotees in meditation, enjoyed with all the paraphernalia Wow, everybody's still there. You waited so long. My God. Thanks for waiting for so long. Oh, now the power is back. Okay, let me switch over to the Wi-Fi. I finished reading the chapter and then I came to move to the next chapter and then I noticed that I don't know how much you all missed. Yeah. Could somebody tell me where I left off? Like, anyways, I'm just going to read from 35 and 36. Tasmin sa Bhagavan Rama snigdaya priyayeshtaya reme swarama. Or should I start? You heard me read this, right? There, I'll just start just to be careful, safe. Thereafter, Lord Ramachandra entered the palace with his forefathers. Within the palace were various treasures and valuable wardrobes. The sitting places on the two sides of the entrance door were made of coral. The yards were surrounded by pillars of Vaiduryamani. The floor was made of highly polished Marakattamani, and the foundation was made of marble. The entire palace was decorated with flags and garlands and bedecked with valuable stones shining with celestial effulgence. The palace was fully decorated with pearls and surrounded by lamps and incense. The men and women within the palace, all resembling demigods, all resembled demigods and were decorated with various ornaments, which seemed beautiful because of being placed on their bodies. I already read this. Tasmin sa Bhagavan Rama snigdaya pshtaya reme swaramadhiranam rishabha sitaya kila. Lord Ramachandra, the supreme personality of Godhead, chief of the best of learned scholars, resided in that palace with his pleasure potency, Mother Sita, and enjoyed complete peace. Babhuje chayata kalamandaryam apidayan varshapuhundrinam abhyatangripallava. Without transgressing the religious principles, Lord Ramachandra are worshipped by the devotees in meditation, enjoyed with all the paraphernalia of transcendental pleasure for as long as needed. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 9th canto, 11th chapter of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled Lord Ramachandra Rules the World. Okay, cool. So now let me switch over. Okay, I'm going to disappear for a second. I'm just switching back to my Wi-Fi. The power came back. All right, and I am back. I need to set up I have an inverter, a battery thing, and it might work now for the Wi-Fi so that this doesn't happen again when the power goes out, that I cut out. All right, so now chapter 12 is very short, but I don't know. Should we do it? Let's see. It's only like 1,000. It's very short. It's only 15 verses and no purports. Let's just see how far we can get by in 10 minutes. The dynasty of Kuśa, the son of Lord Ramachandra. Chapter 12. Chapter describes the dynasty of the son of Lord Ramachandra. The members of this dynasty are this of Sashada, the son of Maharaj Ikshvaku. Following in the genealogical table of Lord Ramachandra's dynasty, Kuśa, the Lord's son, was followed consecutively by Atiti, Nishada, Naba, Pundarika, Kshema Dhanva, Devanika, Aniha, Pariyatra, Balastala, Vajranabha, Sagana, and Vidriti. These personalities ruled the world. From Vidriti came Hiranyanabha, who later became the disciple of Jaimini and propounded the system of mystic yoga in which Yajnavalkya was initiated. Following in this dynasty were Pushpa, Dhruvasandhi, Sudarshana, Agnivarna, Shigra, and Maru. Maru attained full perfection in the practice of yoga, and he still lives in the village of Kalapa. At the end of this age of Kali, he will revive the dynasty of the sun god. Next in the dynasty were Prasushruta, Sandhi, Amarshana, Mahaswan, Vishvabhahu, Prasenajit, Takshak, and Brihadbala, who was later killed by Abhimanyu. Shukadev Goswami said that these were all kings who had passed away. The future descendants of Brihadbala will be Brihadrana, Urukriya, Vatsavridha, Prativyoma, Banu, Divaka, Sahadeva, Brihadashva, Bhanuman, Pratikashva, Supratika, Marudeva, Sunakshatra, Pushkara, Antariksha, Sutapa, Amitrajit, Brihadraja, Barhi, Kritanjaya, Rananjaya, Sanjaya, Shakya, Shudodha, Langala, Prasenajit, Kshudraka, Ranaka, Surata, and Sumitra. All of them will become kings one after another. Sumitra, coming in this age of Kali, will be the last king in the Ikshvaku dynasty. After him, the dynasty will be extinguished. Wow, Sumitra. So, like, he hasn't taken birth yet? That's really interesting. Okay. Shishuka, or maybe he already did? I don't know. Shishuka uvacha kushasya chatitis tasman nishadas tatsuto nava pundariko taptat putra kshemad madanva bhavatata. Shukadev Goswami said, the son of Ramachandra was Kush, the son of Kush was Atiti, the son of Atiti was Nishada, and the son of Nishada was Naba. The son of Naba was Pundarik, and from Pundarik came a son named Kshemadhanva. Devanikastato niha pariyatro tatsuta tato balastalasmad vajrana bhurka sambhava. The son of Kshemadhanva was Devanika. Devanika's son was Aniha. Aniha's son was Pariyatra, and Pariyatra's son was Balastala. The son of Balastala was Vajranab, who is said to have been born from the effulgence of the sun god. Saganastatsutastasmad vidritischa bhavatsuta tato hiranyanabhur bud yogacharyastu jaimine shishya koshalya adhyatmam yagyavalko dagaryata yoga mahodayam rishir hridaya granti bhedakam. The son of Vajranab was Sagana, and his son was Vidriti. The son of Vidriti was Hiranyanabha, who became a disciple of Jaimini and became the great acharya of mystic yoga. It is from Hiranyanabha that the great saint Yajnavalkya learned the highly elevated system of mystic yoga known as Adhyatma Yoga, which can loosen the knots of material attachment in the heart. Pushpo Hiranyanabhasya Dhruvasandhis tato bhavat Sudarshano Tagnivarna Shigrastasya Marusuta. The son of Hiranyanabha was Pushpa, and the son of Pushpa was Dhruvasandhi. The son of Dhruvasandhi was Sudarshan, whose son was Agnivarna. The son of Agnivarna was named Shigra, and his son was Maru. So savaste yoga siddha kalapa grama astita kaler ante Sūrya vanksham nashtam bhavayita punam. Having achieved perfection in the power of mystic yoga, Maru still lives in a place known as Kalapagram. At the end of Kali Yuga, he will revive the lost Sūrya dynasty by begetting a son. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. At least 5,000 years ago, Srila Shukadev Goswami ascertains the existence of Maru and Kalapagram, and Maru, having achieved a Yoga Siddha body, would continue to exist until the end of Kali Yuga, which is calculated to continue for 432,000 years. Such is the perfection of mystic power. Controlling the breath, the perfect yogi can continue his life for as long as he likes. Sometimes we hear from the Vedic literature that some personalities from the Vedic age, such as Vyasadeva and Ashwatthama, are still living. Here we understand that Maru is also still living. We are sometimes surprised that a mortal body can live for such a long time. The explanation of this longevity is given here by the word Yoga Siddha. If one becomes perfect in the practice of yoga, he can live as long as he likes. The demonstration of some trifling Yoga Siddha does not constitute perfection. Here is a factual example of perfection. A Yoga Siddha can live as long as he likes. Tasmat prasushrutastasya sandhistasyapyamarshana mahasvangstat vishvabahur ajayata. From Maru was born a son named Prasushruta. From Prasushruta came Sandhi. From Sandhi came Amarshana. And from Amarshana, a son named Mahasvan. From Mahasvan, Vishvabahu took his birth. Tata prasenajit tasmar takshako bhavita puna tato brihad balo yastu pitrate samarehata. From Vishvabahu came a son named Prasenajit. From Prasenajit came Takshak. From Takshak came Brihad Bala, who was killed in a fight by your father. Eta hikshvaku bhupala atita shrinvanagatan Brihad balasya bhavita putra namna brihana. All these kings in the dynasty of Ikshvaku have passed away. Now please listen as I describe the kings who will be born in the future. For Brihadbala will come Brihadrana. Kriya sutastasya vatsavrido bhavishyati prativyomastato bhanur divako vahini pati. So the son of Brihadrana will be Urukriya, who will have a son named Vatsavridha. Vatsavridha will have a son named Prativyoma, and Prativyoma will have a son named Bhanu, from whom Divaka, a great commander of soldiers, will take birth. Sahadeva sato viro brihadashva tabhanuman pratikashva bhanumattaha supratiko tatsuta. Thereafter from Divaka will come a son named Sahadev, and from Sahadev a great hero named Brihadashva. From Brihadashva will come Bhanuman, and from Bhanuman will come Pratikashva. The son of Pratikashva will be Supratika. Bhavita Marudevo ta sunakshatra tapushkara tasyantarikshas tatputra sutapastar amitrajit. Thereafter from Supratika will come Marudev. From Marudev Sunakshatra. From Sunakshatra Pushkar. And from Pushkar Antariksha. The son of Antariksha will be Sutava. And his son will be Amitrajit. Brihadrajas tutasyapi barhistasmat kritanjaya ranjayas tasya sutta sanjayo bhavita dhata. From Amitrajit will come a son named Brihadraja. From Brihadraja will come Barhi. From Barhi will come Kritanjaya. The son of Kritanjaya will be known as Rananjaya. And from him will come a son named Sanjaya. Tasmach chakyo tashuddhodho langalasta sutta sprita tata prasenajit tasmar kshurako bhavita tata. From Sanjaya will come Shakya. From Shakya will come Shuddhodha. And from Shuddhodha will come Langala. From Langala will come Prasenajit. And from Prasenajit, Kshudraka. Ranako bhavita tasmat suratas-tanayastata sumitro namna nishtanta ete barhad balanvaya. From Kshudraka will come Ranaka. From Ranaka will come Surata. And from Surata will come Sumitra, ending the dynasty. This is a description of the dynasty of Brihadbala. Ikshvakunam ayam vangsha sumitranto bhavishyati yatastang prapya rajanam sangstam prapsyasi vayo. The last king in the dynasty of Ikshvaku will be Sumitra. After Sumitra, there will be no more sons in the dynasty of the sun god, and thus the dynasty will end. That ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 9th canto, 12th chapter of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled The Dynasty of Kuśa, the son of Ramachandra. Finished at 8:30 exactly. We finished on time. Great. All right. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Jai Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai, Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmar Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Shri Gurudev Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmar Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmar Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Shri Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Shri Bhakti Vigyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai, Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nitila Pravishtam Mahabhagavat Shri Gorksharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai, Nitila Pravishtam Shri Satchid Ananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai, Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai, Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jeev Gopala Patadash Raghunath, Shard Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai, Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai, Nama Chai Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Sarva Abhishta Bharata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai, Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund Ki Jai, Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai, Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya Ki Jai, Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo Vrindai Tulsi, Shri Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupada Ashatarashatashmar Bhakti Kamud Santa Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai, Tadiya Shubha Avirbhav Titi Ki Jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Padadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat pranams, everybody. Dandavat pranams, Indira Mataji. I hope you have a safe flight. Yeah, and oops, I just choked on my own saliva. Tomorrow, I am not going to be reading. Indira Mataji will be on a plane, and also there's going to be devotees coming here tomorrow early morning, and I'm going to take them on parikrama to all the places like Champahati, etc. So yeah, tomorrow no reading, and I will continue the day after tomorrow. So see you all then. Haribol. Pajumra was just full of interesting facts, huh? Why did Abhimanyu kill? I have no idea, and I'm very curious myself. I wonder if that's written anywhere, that story. I wonder. I got this book recently by Rupmanjari Didi's Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Vallabha Tirtha Goswami Maharaj, Sages, Saints, and Kings. I wonder if it tells it in here. Yeah, this is a really cool book. This is an encyclopedia of all different personalities in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and other Puranas and things like that. All right. Prajamna, I don't know the answer to all of these things. Maybe, I have no idea. All right, Dandavat Pranams, everybody. See you all the day after tomorrow. Haribol.